ध्वनिर्वर्णापदं वाक्यमित्यास्पदचतुष्टयम् यस्याः सूक्ष्मादिभेदे वाग्देवीं तामुपास्महे।
The Electronic Media Production and Research Center of Madhya Pradesh, Bhoj Open University presents an audio program on visual impairment. This audio program will be useful to the students of B.Ed Special Education Program. The title of audio program is Teaching Compensatory Skills to Students with Visual Impairment. To deliver the lecture on this topic, we have invited our subject expert, Dr. Nora Griffing Shirley. She is a professor in the program of special education at Texas Tech University in Lubbock, Texas in the United States of America. This audio program is recorded, edited and presented by Amar Bahadur Yadav. Let's listen to the second and last part of the audio program, Teaching Compensatory Skills to the Students with Visual Impairment.
Hello, listeners. I am a professor in the Special Education Program in the Department of Educational Psychology and Leadership of the College of Education at Texas Tech University in Lubbock, Texas, in the United States of America. In addition, I also coordinate the Orientation and Mobility Specialist Program, and I am the director of the Virginia Murray Sal Center for Research in Education and Visual Impairment. I have been teaching in a university system for over 20 years. I would like to thank MPBOU Open University for this opportunity to speak to you today about teaching compensatory skills to students with visual impairments, Part 2. The majority of the content for these lectures comes from Prescriptions for Independence, Working with Older People Who Are Visually Impaired, authored by myself and Ms. Gerta Groff. This book was published by the American Foundation for the Blind and was written for professionals who work with older people who are visually impaired, but its content is still germane for teachers of students with visual impairments and other professionals who teach these students as well, irrespective of the student's age. In Part 1, I discussed the importance of teaching basic orientation and mobility skills to students with visual impairments. Important points we gleaned from that lecture were: teaching basic O&M skills will help a visually impaired student to be independent in his environment. Teachers of students with visual impairments can and should teach these skills to their students. Human guides can be used to assist a student to travel safely in many environments. Upper and lower protective techniques can enable a student to travel safely in an open space like in a school corridor. Room familiarization is a technique students can use to acquaint themselves with a new place like a classroom. This technique can be generalized to any new area such as their home, a temple, or a workplace. Have you ever wondered how people with low vision read and write? You probably already know individuals who are blind use Braille as their literacy tool, as well as some people with low vision. The objective for today's lecture is to answer this question by teaching you ways teachers of students with visual impairments can facilitate reading and writing of students with low vision, so you can, in turn, teach them to your students. I am assuming these students already have basic reading skills. Therefore, I will not discuss how to teach reading to students who are blind today. Vision loss may make reading and writing difficult. Resources available for people with visual impairments are large print, audiobooks, special reading aids, and low vision devices and aids. Some of these devices are fairly simple, while others are high-tech. The appropriate choice of a particular device or modification depends on factors such as a student's degree and kind of vision loss, cognitive level, finances, and motivation to use such device. If you familiarize yourself with what is available, then you can assist the low vision student with becoming a more proficient reader and writer. Let's talk about lighting and reading. Good lighting is the most basic requirement for reading, writing, and other close work. And sometimes a person's vision problems can be alleviated simply by adjusting the lighting. But lighting that is comfortable for one person may not be comfortable for another. Some students read and write best in natural light, while others need more light or less light than that. So experiment by closing the curtains in a classroom or adjusting the blinds on the window in some cases, or trying brighter bulbs in others. If natural light turns out to be sufficient, have the person sit with his or her back to a window. If more light is needed, it should be provided by an incandescent lamp that is directed over the shoulder nearest the person's better eye. Most people find that a 75-watt bulb provides a comfortable level of lighting. Here are a few more lighting tips. A gooseneck lamp or high-intensity lamp directed down onto the area of activity, such as reading or doing embroidery, can increase visibility. A rheostat, which adjusts the level of light in a room, can simplify the search for comfortable lighting. Finally, probably the easiest and most effective thing you can do is to replace burned out bulbs or remind someone else to do so. In conjunction with providing better lighting, remembering the importance of contrast is useful. Placing dark-colored objects on light backgrounds and vice versa can often help visually impaired students see better. Whether writing black letters on a white sign or putting white cups on a dark tablecloth, this is a key principle to keep in mind. If better lighting does not correct someone's problem, professional help may be required. Advise the student and his parents to arrange for an appointment at a low vision center for a diagnostic evaluation, or, if appropriate, offer to help him or her make the appointment. Staff at a low vision center specialize in helping people make the most of their remaining vision and often prescribe various reading aids and provide training in their use. Among the reading aids that may be prescribed at a low vision clinic are magnifiers, which can be held in the hand, worn around the neck, mounted on a stand, or attached to eyeglass frames. Special filters or prism lenses. The center will provide training in how to use these devices, but training may also be available from state agencies or rehabilitation centers for blind people. You, as a teacher of the visually impaired, are responsible for teaching a low vision student how to use these aids. There are also high-tech aids on the market that can be useful to facilities serving a number of people with serious visual impairments. Schools and rehabilitation centers need to buy a closed-circuit television system, for example. It consists of a TV monitor and a platform on which reading material is placed. A camera projects the material onto the monitor in a variety of contrasts and type sizes, making it easier to read. An optical scanner can also be useful for visually impaired readers. Scanners can be used to translate text into synthetic speech, in a manner similar to the scanners used at the checkout counters of some supermarkets. If you know that low vision devices have been prescribed for your individual students, check on their use from time to time. There are several ways to make sure the low vision aids are as valuable as they could be. Here are some useful hints for using low vision devices. Remind the person. A simple question such as, "Do you have your magnifier with you, Jane?" can be a gentle reminder about using the aid or can alert the student to the fact that he or she forgot to bring it from home. Be encouraging. It takes practice to learn how to use an optical device. At first, reading with an aid may be very difficult. Make sure to assure your student that this will change. Stress the value of persistence. Supportive comments like, "You're really sticking with it, James," may be helpful. Discourage inappropriate use. Since magnifiers and reading glasses can distort depth perception, they are meant for reading and writing only, not for walking around. If you notice a student using a device inappropriately, a tactful reminder may help ensure the student's safety. Label the devices. When working in a school, make sure that all aids and eyeglasses are labeled with the student's name. Labeling prevents not only loss, but the inadvertent use of someone else's aids. It is also important to label other types of aids such as canes, closed-circuit televisions. Arrange for demonstrations. The use of special devices can be the subject of a good talk among students. Good sources of lecturers or demonstrations are, obviously, the teachers of the visually impaired, a local agency for visually impaired persons, or a school for the blind, and a company that sells high-tech optical equipment. In addition to low vision devices, there are certain simple items that can facilitate reading. A sheet of colored acetate, which can be purchased at most office supply or art supply stores, increases the contrast between type and background when it is put over a page of reading matter. A line of print becomes easier to read when a typoscope, which is a piece of dark plastic or cardboard with a slit in it, is placed over the line, thereby isolating it from the rest of the text. The most frequently called numbers in a telephone directory, one of the more difficult publications to read, by the way, can be made more legible by highlighting them with a colored marker, such as a yellow magic marker. It is also a good idea to make a personal phone book by printing frequently called numbers and numbers in a large print on index cards with a black marker. Also, one can use its mobile phone. Restaurant menus, theater programs, and other items that are usually read in a dim light can be seen more clearly with the aid of a pen light or a pocket-sized flashlight. A book stand is not usually thought of as a reading aid, but when a reader's hands are shaky, due to cerebral palsy, for example, or occupied by a magnifier, it can make the difference between being able to read or giving up. That is why adjustable stands, those that can be set at the correct height and angle for a particular task, are a worthwhile purchase for any school. A reading problem can sometimes be solved easily by larger print. Fortunately, large print books, from bestsellers to reference works, are available at bookstores and libraries. A wide variety of other items that have to be read, such as watches, clocks, telephone dials, bathroom scales, playing cards, thermometers, rulers, oven dials, microwave dials, and board games, is also available with large print or in talking adaptations that provide information through synthetic speech. Audiobooks and digital books are very popular as well as downloading books onto one's personal computer. Students need to be aware of these options and know how to access these other ways of reading. It is up to you as a teacher of students with visual impairments to acquaint the student and his parents and other teachers about these devices. Now, we will look at ways to facilitate writing. Writing skills may diminish at the same time that reading skills do for a person with low vision. And, as with reading, there are several steps you can take to make writing less difficult for a low vision student. Provide contrast. Without enough contrast between paper and writing surface, the paper's edges can seem to disappear. To create contrast, put a solid color placemat or a darker piece of paper or cloth under the writing paper. Contrast can also be achieved by putting the paper on a clipboard, which has the added advantage of holding the paper steady. Another plus is that the duller surrounding surface provided by the clipboard may help eliminate bothersome glare. Use colored writing paper. White paper is not the easiest for everyone to see. Experiment with yellow, beige, and gray paper with your student and have him or her make the choice that's best for him or her. Suggest using paper with bold lines. Students do not usually use such paper, except when they're learning to write. So a low vision student may not realize how much easier it is to keep handwriting straight when following a line, even if his or her writing is shaky or is scarcely legible. Encourage the person to practice writing, particularly signatures and other combination of words that are frequently used. If necessary, give the student a supply of lined pads and suggest that he or she use a pen with a broad felt tip, preferably black. Create writing guides. By demarcating spaces for writing, raised guides made of cardboard or similar material make it easier for the individual with low vision to see where to write or feel where to write, if he or she can no longer see his or her writing. In making these guides, it is best to use cardstock or poster board paper in a dark color to create contrast with the white or light page on which they are placed. Be sure to provide instructions in using the guide. For example, You can paperclip a signature guide on a sheet of paper. Turn it to the angle at which the student usually writes and watch while he or she practices writing his signature a few times. Ready-made guides are also available from organizations that serve blind people. Make your own communications clear. When writing to a student with visual impairment, remember that print made by a word processor is the easiest to read. Use large-size characters. If you must write by hand, use mainly lowercase letters instead of all capitals, which are more difficult to decipher. Use a pen with a broad felt tip and dark color ink. If a visually impaired student has word processing skills, encourage him or her to keep using them. Stress the fact that, as with other types of writing, spelling mistakes and crossed out words do matter, but what's important is to keep writing. Another way to communicate, if one finds writing difficult, is to send letters on recorded tape cassettes. Because they're so convenient, tape recorders should be available in every facility or school, just as pencils, pens, and paper. Try to make certain that you have tape recorders on hand. Show students how they work. Encourage those who have stopped writing to make tapes for friends and loved ones, perhaps on a daily basis. Tapes bridge the miles of any generation gap, since children enjoy listening to them as much as older people enjoy making them, and younger people. With all the resources available, no one has to be without the ability to read or write in one form or another. By keeping tabs on the abilities of the people you work with and being familiar with ways of helping them, you can make certain that they continue to enjoy the pleasure of words for many years to come. The computer can also be used for writing by increasing the font size, changing the background and print colors on the monitor, or using a voice synthesis program. Students can improve their writing ability. You, as a teacher of the visually impaired, are responsible for knowing how to instruct these students on the computer with these adaptations. At this point, you may pose the question, how can I teach these students about these adaptations or modifications? Let's look at some suggestions. Dr. William Jacobson, in his book, The Art and Science of Teaching Orientation and Mobility to Persons with Visual Impairment, states, the use of applied behavior analysis can provide the instructor with a means to bring about mastery and lasting changes in students' behavior and skills. When using applied behavior analysis, you should observe a student trying to complete a task, such as reading a story or writing a letter to a friend. This observation determines the baseline behavior, or rather, what level the student is functioning at with a skill. The intervention is then provided. For example, a student may be taught how to use a magnifier for reading a story. The student's progress is then noted by looking at the student's reading speed, comprehension, use of the low vision device, etc. If the progress is positive, then the magnifier and the teaching strategy have been effective. If not, then the teaching strategy or a different magnifier may need to be changed until success and mastery are achieved. Goals, short and long-term objectives are established after an assessment is completed. A task analysis where a task is broken down into subtasks and then each subtask is taught until the whole skill is learned is a recommended teaching approach. This approach has been widely used and successful with many students with visual impairments. Positive reinforcement is a must. In the United Nations Organization for Education, Scientific, and Cultural Development Special Needs in the Classroom, Teacher Education Guide, 7 strategies for making learning more meaningful are used. These strategies are: 1. Building new lessons on the previous knowledge. 2. Using the student's daily experiences. 3. Making learning functional. 4. Raising interest in the content by using stories. 5. Relating learning to other subjects. 6. Field trips and projects. And finally, 7. Games. Here is an example illustrating these strategies. Amar needs to use the telescope to see the chalkboard. He already uses a magnifier to read print in his textbooks. You, as a teacher of students with visual impairments, discuss with Amar how he learned to use the magnifier to read and the success he has had using it, and that you anticipate the same success with the use of his telescope. By doing this, you are building on Amar's previous experience and knowledge of using low vision devices. In addition, you explain to Amar that he will be able to see what is on the chalkboard as well as other objects at a distance, which he has not been able to do in the past. You also tell him about another student, his age, that has benefited from this device. Amar and you design a project where he will contact and interview this other student you told him about. Finally, in teaching Amar how to use this telescope, you make a game out of it. For example, you say, "Look at the board, Amar. Read to me the words in the list I have written on the board in 1 minute." Without your telescope. Now, Amar, using your telescope, let's see how many words you can now read in the list within 1 minute. In Teaching and Learning Through Multiple Intelligences, Campbell and Associates discuss how Dr. Howard Gardner's multiple intelligence approach can be an effective teaching process to utilize for teaching new skills, such as the use of low vision devices. Usually, a student exhibits 1 to 2 intelligences, which range from linguistic intelligence, logical, mathematical intelligence, spatial intelligence, bodily kinesthetic intelligence, musical intelligence, interpersonal intelligence, intrapersonal intelligence, to finally emotional intelligence. Teachers need to present students with a multisensory approach to capitalize and nurture their students' intelligences. For example, if Amar has musical intelligence, then you may want to teach him how to focus his telescope by developing a song based on the steps needed to accomplish this task. The song may go like this. This is the way we focus our scope, we focus our scope, we focus our scope. This is the way we focus our scope so early in the school day. Just remember to always provide opportunities for your students to succeed with every lesson. The important points to remember from today's lecture are: to facilitate reading, different types of lighting, magnifiers, closed-circuit televisions, bold line paper, optical scanners, audio and digital books, and large print can be used. Writing can be facilitated by providing contrast, using colored writing paper, paper with bold lines, writing or signature guides, a bold pen, and a personal computer. Teaching strategies based on applied behavior analysis and Gardner's multiple intelligence theory can be effectively used to teach students how to use adaptations to read and write. I hope you have gained some new knowledge today that you can use in your school with the students with visual impairments you teach. Thank you for listening.
You were listening to the second and last part of an audio program teaching compensatory skills to the students with visual impairment. The subject expert and speaker was Dr. Nora Griffin Shirley. Announcer was Rajni Sen. This audio program was recorded, edited and presented by Amar Bahadur Yadav. This audio program was a production of the Electronic Media Production and Research Center of Madhya Pradesh Bhoj Open University.